You're listening to Mom and Doc Talk, where we talk all things healing pans and pandas with an emphasis on homeopathy. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Mom and Doc Talk. We are joined today not by one, but by two members of our team, Dr. Ben Zorensky and Dr. Gregory Pais. Both have been with Resilience Naturopathic for several years now, and they are here to talk with us about the value of working with a licensed naturopathic doctor when you are using homeopathy for your care for PANDAS or for other complex chronic conditions too. I'm going to give you the overview, and then I think we can talk in a little bit more detail. Does that sound good, guys?
Sure.
So the primary thing that's really beneficial, even if you're working with somebody like Resilience Naturopathic, where we're doing homeopathic consultation only, so we're not prescribing medications, we're not recommending many supplements, we're not ordering labs or anything like that, but we have the training in them to help you navigate to make sure you're doing what's appropriate, what's necessary. And then if you're using other things, we have the training to make sure you're safely and effectively making changes so that you're only doing what you actually need to do, what's effective, and when you're making changes that you're doing it in a safe way so that you're not having any big fallouts from maybe stopping a medication too early. The other area is that homeopathy, while it's really miraculous and it can help with most things, it can't help with everything. And that's one of the places where having a medically trained doctor is, or medically trained homeopath is so helpful, that we are trained to identify all of these conditions and understand how to diagnose it and can give guidance to make sure that if there's something that you're addressing that really needs an additional treatment or a separate treatment, that you're able to get that and make sure that it's not going to hinder your progress, or that you end up in like an emergency situation. For instance, if somebody is showing signs of early onset diabetes, which happens in some kids, so type 1 diabetes can happen because it's an autoimmune condition. We can see some of that occur with PANDAS kids. You're at a greater likelihood of having another autoimmune condition. That could be an emergency if it's not treated appropriately. And we want to help people prevent needing to go to the emergency room. So these are some of the things that can be really important for when you're dealing with something as complex as PANS, or other complex conditions that are associated with the immune system. So I know, Jody, you want to share a little bit about your experience, but I'm going to start with the docs today, if that's all right with you.
Yep.
So Dr. Pais, I know that you have shared with me a couple of different stories. So let's start with your own story and like why you chose to go to naturopathic school versus all of the other options that you were considering.
So the context for me, this was the early 80s. I had just finished a 6-month professional botanical medicine program. At that time, the best in the country for sure, run by Rosemary Gladstar. And I came out of that program looking around, and I was looking at some of the other students that had graduated with me. And I remember in particular, you just happened to mention this, that someone hung up a shingle and they were treating people with diabetes.
Mhm.
And I knew enough about diabetes to know that I was not prepared to work with anyone that was diagnosed with diabetes. One, the physical, especially the physiological and the biochemical nature of that disease and the criticality of working with that, I felt that I would not do my patients well, my clients well, by then if I just, I can give you an herb for this and you're going to be better, right? So that was the stepping point for me. I had, around that same time, I had learned about and actually had brought a homeopathic naturopathic doctor to the herb school to actually teach us an acute class on homeopathy. And that was my first homeopathy class.
Mhm.
And knowing that, and then knowing about naturopathic medicine through this ND, it was a natural step for me to look and try to find a naturopathic medical program to get into. So for me, I wanted to have that medical background. The letters are nice, but more importantly for me was the actual work, the study, anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, all that, which I found I wanted to know to help me be
Mhm.
a better homeopath, to help me be a better practitioner so I could help my clients. And
Yeah.
that was really, as I say, that was my stepping point for that whole journey.
Yeah. All right. I know you go by Dr. Ben with your clients, so we'll call you Dr. Ben today. So, Dr. Ben, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, similar to Dr. Pace, I also have a fairly long history with homeopathy. I grew up, my mom was a homeopath. She wasn't a physician, but she was a, professional homeopath and practiced for some time. So I grew up seeing how it worked. I went to visit homeopaths when I was a teenager and, after that, even as a young adult. But I'd also had injuries that required more than just homeopathy, specifically like a shoulder surgery and recovery. I always knew I wanted to become a physician, partly because of the inspiration from my mom and practice homeopathy. And I feel blessed to do that solely with resilience classical homeopathy, but just from our experience and the nature of the population that we deal with, and just in general too, it's so valuable to have that depth in medical training, to know pathology, to know physiology, anatomy, because homeopathy is safe, it's effective, it can be a lasting form of medicine. But when there's other ailments on board, or even complex disease, where the diagnosis, maybe these clients that we work with come in with a diagnosis, or even if it's suspected,
Mhm.
as a physician, we know when to refer, when we can use homeopathy solely, when there needs to be other treatment or providers working on the case as well. But also, being a naturopathic physician, we have a wide range of modalities that we've been trained in, one of which is obviously classical homeopathy. But if any of our clients are doing acupuncture or taking supplements, or, botanicals, or even conventional prescribed pharmaceuticals, we can sort of know how to balance, how to discern what the response is to the remedy, and maybe what the
Yeah.
other modalities could be helping with. So it's sort of that breadth of knowledge that we have, and knowing when to refer, but also, in addition to homeopathy, being able to adjust or tweak some of the other sort of treatments that these clients are working with. So just sort of the depth of it all is really, I think,
Yeah.
important.
That's one reason why, I have respect for practitioners and providers of all different types, right? Like some of the most amazing homeopaths are professional homeopaths who have not necessarily had the medical training. The concerning issue for me, and when hiring providers here, is making sure that we can navigate the totality and help people basically be the foreman or like the director or whatever of like helping to make sure that we're making the next right step. And naturopathic doctors are uniquely trained in the medical and healing professions, where we are trained and able to prescribe in many states where we hold licenses, conventional medications. So we're the only providers who, from the very foundation of our training, from day one, we are learning about drug nutrient interactions, drug herb interactions, herb nutrient interactions, diet, like therapeutic diets, and the ways that those can impact drugs, and the ways that various genetic factors can influence the way that we're doing overall, the way that our body processes drugs, the way it processes nutrients. And we're also the only ones, we're the only medically trained professionals who have homeopathy from the very beginning of our medical training. So it's the only licensed healthcare provider who is trained to navigate the totality of what many PANDAS families and others with complex chronic conditions are using, rather than like a weekend course that's trying to teach you how to do herbs or how to use functional medicine or things like that, which is taught primarily by naturopathic doctors because it's based primarily on naturopathic medicine. So that's really where it comes in, that we can help identify the problems that maybe need some additional attention, or some additional therapies. We can help navigate what's going to be working together well, what might need to be stopped, how to stop safely. And also, guys, occasionally we need to recommend that something be started, right? Like there are some cases that we work with where there's enough like fire happening in the brain that the body just can't make the progress that we want to see with homeopathy, and we need to suggest that something be started in order to put the fire out so that we can work on the kindling with homeopathy. And we're able to help give guidance. We can't necessarily at Resilience Naturopathic, we can't necessarily like write the prescription, but we can give guidance for how to make the next right decision and what different options people can use to help put that fire out, and limit the amount that we need to use. So I would love to hear a little bit more about some of your experiences if you guys have some examples. But before we get there, I'll give you a minute to think about that since I'm kind of springing this on you. Jody, I would love to hear your thoughts as a mom, from the things that we've shared.
I think this is a really hard thing. Like there's so much, whenever folks are coming into the world of PANDAS or learning about homeopathy now, there's a lot of misinformation about homeopaths, how their education, their training background, all of that thing. And it's just a really confusing thing. So I'm glad we're having the conversation. And I feel like, to me, the easiest way to think about it, and I got lucky and I found resilience immediately, or I found resilience first. So I don't know what it's like to work with a non-medically trained homeopath, ND. But from a lot of conversations that I've had, things can kind of get tangled up quickly. And having someone with this extra training, education, knowing all of the things, and I experienced this with my younger daughter, especially because she had to do her whole healing journey on medication. And there was conversations that we had in there between, do I wean right now or do I add foods right now? And there were multiple places where we were able to talk through that and you could have a conversation. I think what an ND brings makes it a whole lot less likely that things are going to get tangled up and confusing, because you guys know how to direct us in a way that someone without the medical training can direct us and keep us on track, not just with homeopathy, but also with, hey, Avery needs to go and have her iron levels tested because there's a couple of things that look a little concerning. Homeopathy is not going to deal with it. So you need to go and get this taken care of. So it helps things not pile up more, I think.
So a couple things I want to say really quick before we go to some examples or anything else that the two of you want to share on this topic too. So first and foremost, you brought up iron. Iron is one of those things that homeopathy might or might not be able to help with depending on what it causes. So if anybody's like just got pinged in on to that particular example, some things homeopathy can help with, some things it can't. And that's why we need to recommend testing in some certain circumstances to figure out, is this something homeopathy can help with, or is this something that we just need to take more iron for? As it relates to training, the one of the challenges within the professional homeopathic community, and that this is being worked on, so at some point this might be completely outdated. There is a wide range of training that's available and a wide range of intensity and scrutiny that goes into the training for a professional homeopath. And so some people, because there's not like a specific license or a specific regulating body that it says this is for sure, that this is what this person has been trained to do and has shown and demonstrated that they have these skills, it's harder to really verify with somebody who is a professional homeopath versus somebody who has a license for something, and that has a regulating body that is able to say, yes, they've met these training standards and they've passed these exams, these national exams, etc. That said, so you do get the benefit of working with somebody who is a licensed naturopathic doctor. Not all states license naturopathic doctors, so there can be a little bit of confusion there about whether somebody's a naturopath or a naturopathic doctor. There's resources that you can go to. The American Association of Naturopathic Physicians is a good resource for figuring out if somebody is a licensed naturopathic doctor or the licensure status of your state. So the challenge here, not all naturopathic doctors are good homeopaths, right? So that's where you have to really navigate through. I would highly recommend the Homeopathic Academy of Naturopathic Physicians and the resource page there, or just Resilience Naturopathic, where I personally vet every single member of our team to make sure that they are skilled homeopaths and licensed naturopathic doctors. So there's not just the simplest way to make sure that who you're getting is really skilled, that they're going to give you sound medical advice that's not going to put you into harm's way unless you've really done a little bit of research. And I know I just probably made that a little bit more complex, but I think that the shortcuts with this is having a medically trained professional who has a, ND, MD, et cetera, behind their name. They've at least had the medical training for the purpose of safety and other treatments that you're going to use. ND, that's a licensed ND, they've had the training in the herbs, the nutrients, the drugs, the diets, and the interactions of all of them. And they've had at least some homeopathy training. If they're an ND and they are a DHA and P, like Dr. Pais and I am, and Dr. Zorensky will probably be soon, that they've also been verified that they have the skills in homeopathy as a naturopathic doctor. But that said, there's plenty of people who are good homeopaths who haven't gotten that extra certification yet. So is that clear as mud, guys?
Yep.
All right. So Dr. Pais, I know you've had a couple of examples that you've even shared with our team of where it was there was a really complex additional condition or something that was really important that you were able to speak to a parent and help them navigate what they needed to do next because of your training.
It was the parent of a couple of kids that I've been working with for a while, who both of whom seem to be doing pretty well at this point. However, the parent had a recent acute injury and then actually developed a very acute, serious problem called deep vein thrombosis, which is an emergency condition if not addressed appropriately. He got good conventional medical care for that condition, but in our interactions at the visit where we were discussing, okay, what can homeopathy do for him in that situation?
Mm-hmm.
I was able to go over with him pretty succinctly all the bases that he needed to have touched to make sure that he was indeed getting the care, the assessment, the diagnostics that were done appropriately, testing, et cetera, so that they knew what had happened, and they put him on blood thinners, which is a standard approach for that particular condition, one of the standard approaches. And so we that dot was done on the eye. So that interaction, I think, was very, it was useful for me in terms of making sure that, okay, we've got these bases covered. He's getting the care conventionally that he needed. So now we can address the pain and then all the other symptoms that aren't included when they give you drugs for a condition like deep vein thrombosis. He was having incredible lightning-like pains, and he was having a lot of issues with extreme cold reactions, just some non-drug situations, but actually part of his case that we were working on. So having the combination of what I knew about that from my medical training and then the ability to address those symptoms homeopathically, we just had his first 2-week follow-up last week, and no pain, no shocks, no cold, and he's doing well with his interaction with his conventional docs as far as his progress with his condition. So, happy on all those levels, but, we've got a ways to go to make sure that, he continues to respond well and doesn't have any kind of fallback. But that's my most recent example.
Yeah. Awesome. What about you, Dr. Ben?
Maybe not a specific example, but just, referring to the principles of naturopathic medicine, really line up well with homeopathy. Do no harm, act in cooperation with the healing power of nature, treat the cause of the individuals. Not that this is a study call for us, but we do read the Organon often on Fridays, and preparing for this today, I want to just touch on a little bit of aphorism 3. He says, if the physician, Samuel Hahnemann says, if the physician clearly perceives what is to be cured in disease, that is to say, in every individual case of disease, knowledge of disease indication, he clearly perceives what is cured as in medicines, that is to say, each individual medicine, knows how to adapt and according to clearly defined principles. So again, with our training, we know a lot about pathology and disease, but not just that, as naturopathic physicians who focus on classical homeopathy, how to distinguish sort of the individual who's suffering from that common disease, what is characteristic of the disease, but what's unique to that individual, what's strange, rare, and peculiar, and how to sort of isolate that. In addition to knowing disease in that individual who presents with those symptoms, we know the medicine, but again, not just the homeopathy and remedies, but we also have a lot of knowledge in pharmaceutical, botanicals. So again, it's that sort of that breadth of our training, and then how to sort of adopt those principles and dose and posology and how that sort of unfolds with case taking, because we all know that a lot of what we do is finding that right remedy, taking a good solid case, but that's only half of it. And we need to know how to follow up, how to schedule visits, how to sort of make adjustments between, move up in potency remedies, or even add in or take out certain other modalities that are being part of that case. So again, it's this sort of the big picture that we have a really good idea for.
Yeah. We're not.
Let me just say, sorry to interrupt, Dr. Bahr, but let me just say that Ben is the one that got to nerd out here, and it wasn't me. So thank you, Dr. Ben, for referencing the Organon. That was great.
I think I get that from you, Dr. Pais. You've inspired me.
Well, I mean, like you said, like we do our Friday study calls where we're always trying to grow and learn together. And when we review and collaborate on our challenging cases. And how frequently do we bring up, like, let's talk about the actual pathology and what's happening here? And is this common? Is this actually something that yes, we expect homeopathy can help with, but is this really a useful symptom for selecting the remedy that's going to help this individual because of how this actual pathology works? Or is this something like what's happening with this medication, and how would we need to navigate this medication in order to get the best and most effective results? So, I mean, that's just also, it's wonderful because we come together and we all lift each other up and grow together, and really fantastic.
If I could just add on, and again, we're all naturopathic physicians. We all went to school or finished school knowing that we wanted to focus on classical homeopathy. So there are a lot of naturopathic physicians out there who practice homeopathy, but I think your practice, Dr. Bahr, is pretty unique in that there's 15 providers and we're a team and we're constantly learning, studying, but bringing cases to one another. And so again, sort of that sum of all parts is that emergent property of resilience is even more sort of direct or profound than just individual. It's great to have individual providers out there, but again, the team of resilience is pretty remarkable what we can do together.
We really do all make each other better. Like, all of us have evolved much faster and grown and like learned so much together that we would never have accomplished on our own. That's for sure.
And that's not just the providers, but that's the client guides like Jody and the admin and everybody who sends out remedies. I mean, it's quite an operation.
And that said, I mean, we know that we're also not going to be the right fit for everybody. So for anybody who is like, we're not the right fit for it, that's fine. We just want to make sure that this podcast is able to help people make the next right decision for yourself and understand when you're making the decision for who you're going to get help with for this really challenging condition for your kid, or for anything you might be dealing with, because again, homeopathy can help with so much beyond PANS and PANDAS. We just want to make sure that you've got the information you need to make the next right decision for your family. And that first decision you need to make is who you're going to trust to consult with. Maybe it's us, maybe it's somebody else. But knowing what you can expect from somebody, I think makes a big difference when you're going into something that takes your sleep, takes your peace, takes so much from you, that leaves you so depleted. And it can, I mean, Jody, I'll hand it over to you because I don't want to speak for parents when I've got a parent here.
Oh, I was kind of spaced out because I'm already thinking about, we have to have Dr. Ben and Dr. Pais back, because like, I know that there's other moms out there like me that like the nerdy, like deeper homeopathy stuff. And anytime you guys start talking about, that's where my brain was back there, listening to Dr. Ben talk about the Organon. The more I learn about homeopathy, the more like fascinating it is to me, the amount of stuff that you guys know. And like, y'all, every once in a while, you'll start spitting out little pieces of this knowledge and like the vast array of things. And I'm like, oh, talk about that more. So I think we need to have another episode talking about the nerdy stuff, the deeper Organon stuff, because I love that stuff. Okay, now bring me back to what you were asking me a second ago.
Well, now I'm lost and I went off into like left field. Just I was talking about how we recognize that we might not be the right fit. for everybody, and that we just want to help parents have the information they need to make the best next right choice. And like I said early on, there are really good homeopaths who aren't medically trained. And it's just a matter of knowing what you can expect and what their training is, and like what the perspective is that they're taking from things, what they're able to bring to the table. That's really it.
Yeah, and I think we're all part of that. Like everybody's just trying to figure out what works for their kid.
Yep.
And I think just even having this bit of information so we can be making the most educated choices for our children is, you know, if that's our part in it, is giving a family a piece of education, and, you know, resilience is not it. Of course, I want resilience to be it for everybody because I know how lovely everyone is. But I think, again, we're just part of trying to help families figure out what's best for their kiddos.
Yeah. And so we really went into like the value of having somebody who's managing all, or who's trained in and can help with managing, or at least giving you information and teaching you so that you can make the next right steps. For anybody who's listening to this and is like, wait a minute, what are all these things that you're talking about? We've got some posts and some like shorter information about this type of thing, like the differences between conventional medicine, functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, homeopathy, and the different things that you can expect in that. In our Facebook group, we've got some short posts. I think we might have had a couple of episodes related to these too. We'll have to go back and look, and we can put links to anything that might be useful for anybody who's like, wait a minute, what is all this stuff that you guys are talking about? So any other final thoughts, guys?
I wanted to underscore a little bit about what Dr. Ben said earlier in passing, which is it's one thing to come to homeopathy, which is in itself, most markedly different system of medicine compared to conventional medicine and actually other traditional medicines like Native American traditional medicine or the traditional medicine of India, etc. Maybe in part similar to traditional Chinese medicine, but again, quite different in its philosophical underpinnings. And of all those different approaches, if you include naturopathic medicine at its core, as Dr. Ben mentioned, there is this focus on this dynamic of looking for the person, how the person heals, and what that process is about, and which I'm only, I'm not doing it justice here in these few seconds, but it's a very different approach from when you're thinking, we're going to give this one thing, and then we're going to see this one thing and get better, and we're done, and that's it, and you've been cured, to actually approaching the whole person from using a medicine not based on theoretical information, but actually based on information, how to give that medicine, and then treating the whole person that is diagnosed with PANS or PANDAS, and then not just seeing the tic improve or the OCD improve or the rage, but actually that whole person improve, sleep, how they eat, how they interact with their siblings, their parents, etc. That there is that resonance with what I think of as traditional naturopathic medicine. That that's why I chose it instead of the only other way to get medical training in homeopathy in the early 80s was to go to MD school. Yeah. And I did not have an interest in doing that. And the closest thing to what I was just talking about was ND school. So just to, underpin what Ben said, I think that's a really important aspect of it.
That's what kind of why I went to naturopathic school too, is like I wanted to have the ability to figure out what was going on, but I wanted to meet people where they were at and help them heal in a way that wasn't just trying to like make their problem. The way I always said it, because I was interested primarily in mental health. I felt like so much of conventional medicine is trying to make your problem not a problem for somebody else, but just give you a different problem, because that's less problematic for them. And I use the problem a whole lot of times, but like, especially with the stuff that I was dealing with growing up and like as a young adult, I felt like much of the medication was to make me less of a problem for the people around me and not really trying to make me feel better as a person, as a whole person. And I didn't want a part of that. And that's how I found my way to naturopathic medicine. And then, the whole skepticism with homeopathy and my whole story. And I would say that it just completely popped into my mind. And I think somebody must need to hear this somewhere. I think one of the things that's really valuable about working with you know, somebody who has that same sort of approach to like wanting people to heal, wanting to be better as a whole person, finding something that leads to true health and like thriving, not just suppressing symptoms. It's a little easier to take it from somebody when like, no, you really should, you need to go to the emergency room for this thing, or no, you really need to take this other medication that might feel hard to accept, but if it's coming from somebody who has a similar viewpoint, for somebody who is not as interested in taking the conventional approach. I've had a lot of people who are like, I never would have taken this thing that I really ended up needing to take that was vital for me to be able to be okay, like thyroid hormone. Like so many people, for, you know, even though it's like you have to have thyroid hormone to be able to heal and to function okay. Some people just don't want to take it. But if I say, no, you really need to take thyroid hormone, for some reason, it's an easier thing to swallow and to accept because it's coming from somebody who has that global understanding and the same ultimate goals. So I think there's value in that too, that being able to be guided by somebody who has the same ultimate goal and the same or at least maybe not exactly the same, but similar approach to how to get to health, that it might be a little bit easier to understand or to accept when there is maybe short term or maybe long term. Like I've taken thyroid medication since 2007. I will take it for the rest of my life because I have to. There's been enough damage to my thyroid that homeopathy is not going to make it bounce back from where it was.
And I think as a parent, I can say that it also resonates a little differently from someone that I feel like I can fully trust.
Yeah.
And that's because it's somebody that's on the same page that I am.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with trust.
Yeah.
If I could just add, you know, this is a science, what we're doing here, although the mechanism of action may not have been proven yet, although I think, not to spoil, but your next guest, Iris Bell.
Oh, the one we just had right before.
Or
So
sorry,
our last
yeah.
episode with Dr. Iris Bell. Where
Yeah.
we're doing, yeah.
And I love her lectures, and I can't wait to listen to what you just recorded. But again, there's certain variables when you start a remedy, and the medications, the other modalities or treatment that these clients are on, you know, those need to stay the same because we're introducing a new variable, which is the remedy. And with each follow-up, we're seeing how things are shifting, and then when we can sort of make other adjustments to the other variables that are part of the equation. So again, there's a method to this. And, you know, as a physician with that training, there's a lot of prereqs and science that go into becoming a doctor. And I just think that sort of is important as well. And also Dr. Pais's point about the whole person. And again, that's where we really shine too. We're not just trying to eliminate symptoms or make things less frequent, intense, or long lasting, but sometimes, you know, I hear clients just say that it's almost as if a light has come on, or they're getting their child back, or sort of that sentiment. And that's not eliminating symptoms, but that's just sort of bringing out more of who that person is. And that's really what the profound part of homeopathy and how it can be healing in that way.
I think that one of the things that I've heard from a lot of clients is that one of the greatest benefits from having worked with members of our team is that they aren't going on a treasure hunt that can often happen with like expensive lab testing and with some other naturally focused healthcare providers. So that when we recommend something, they know that there's a reason for it, so that it's more targeted, that we know we're looking for a specific thing that we are concerned about for very legitimate reasons, so that it saves them a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money, sometimes even having that more targeted guidance with the approach that we take, and then the understanding of how homeopathy works and how we're approaching healing. All right. Jody, any final thoughts for parents?
I don't think so. I feel like
Okay.
you guys had a great conversation, and I think it's a really valuable piece of learning as we're getting
Yeah.
started and we're deciding who to, you know, to care for our children.
Yeah. So I want to I've said it probably 3 or 4 times, but it's worth ending and saying it again, that we know we're not going to be the right fit for everybody, and that's okay. We just want to make sure that you have the information that you need to feel confident making the next right step to get your kid back as quickly as possible with as little headache and heartache for you as possible. So if it happens to be us, fantastic. If it's not us, also great. We wish you the best, and we hope that you find the solutions and the healing that you are looking for and that you and your kiddo deserve. To wrap it up though, since Jody is saying that she would like to have people back, have the two of you back to have some like more deep dive Organon, like Colin
We
and
need
Samuel
a-
Hahnemann geek out.
Nerd out.
I want to hear from our audience too. Jody's a big nerd, so I don't necessarily trust you, Jody. So if there's other people, if any of our listeners would like to have us do some of these deeper dives and like talking about some of the really important or meaningful to us and to like help guide our thinking aphorisms from the Organon or chronic disease or any of the writings from the old homeopathic texts, let us know. Shoot us an email, send us a comment. You know, we've got all of our contact information in the show notes. And you can also join our Facebook group and say, hey guys, you know, we get feedback from you guys there too. So you can let us know there too. As always, if there's questions or anything that we shared today that is you need a little bit of clarification on or anything like that, there you can also reach out to us for that. Dr. Ben and Dr. Pais, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts and your expertise and your experience that you came to share with us and our audience today. It's been a pleasure working and growing with you guys over the last several years, and I'm so grateful for the work that you do to help this community and the work that we do together to lift each other up and make it so that we can get these families recovered and make PANS and PANDAS a thing of the past and homeopathy the medicine of the future together. So thank you both for your time and everything.
Thank you, Dr. Bahr.
Thanks, Dr. Bahr.
All right, take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.
We hope you found this episode helpful, hopeful, and inspiring. We try to get a new episode out every week. You can make sure you don't miss any by following us on Spotify or subscribing to our channel on YouTube. If you want to connect with us more, join our Facebook group, Homeopathy for Pans and Pandas, where we have exclusive weekly videos and answer your questions about, you guessed it, homeopathy for Pans and Pandas throughout the week. If you are already a member, give us a shout out and let us know what you thought about this episode. If you aren't on Facebook and would like to reach us, you can email us at podcast@resiliencенaturopathic.com. Until next time, take care and remember, this won't be forever.